Oh, of course, yeah.
It's kind of connecting, setting up.
Well, I just got notification that it went live.
Oh, excellent. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. It's live. There's a little bit of a, okay. There's a delay.
Notification that it went.
Oh, excellent. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. It's live. There's a little bit of a, okay. There's a delay. Yeah, here we go. It's live. Oh, my. There's a little bit of a, there we go. Let's hope that works. Hi, guys. We are live. We are live streaming right now. We're a few minutes early. I had to mute my other window, so I hope you guys can hear me okay. Now, the only issue that I'm seeing is it's not going to the event I set up. But we're recording. It is live streaming on my channel. So hopefully people will find it. So first time I've done it. So thank you so much for your patience. As we're getting ready to do this, feel free to use the chat. I will do my best to keep up with that. And I am a little disappointed that I did not get the event set up correctly, but it is on the page. So, all right. All right, guys, at 2 minutes, we're going to go live. Well, we are live right now. So if anybody's watching, they can hear our pre-game show here. So thank you, Anuja. All right. And I get to see the comments over here from YouTube. All right. Excellent. Oh, no, actually, it's right here in our Zoom. Okay. I'm a little nervous. I have a little performance anxiety because we haven't done it before, but this is great. So in this 2 minutes, as we're building up to our actual 1 o'clock launch of the official episode, I did some research, and there are over 4.5 million podcasts in the world right now, but only about 450 to 500,000 actually do new content. And according to Riverside, one of the biggest podcasting services out there, 90% of shows don't go past episode 3. And then the rest of them tend to fade out after 20 episodes, and they actually call that pod fade. So it's kind of interesting that we have made it to 300 episodes. I want to welcome you all here. I'm going to do my usual intro at 1 o'clock because this is kind of a big day. I want to thank you all for joining me for this. You've all been guests on the show more than once. I'm going to be turning off AI assistance as we're going along. There we go. If your AI wants to watch, they can watch on YouTube. So, all right, remove and remove. All right, so we're doing that. We're not reporting that. It's funny. This was the one thing I reminded everybody not to cuss, but I didn't remind them not to use their note takers. So here we go.
So no cussing?
There's Joy. Yeah.
No cussing.
Well, she reminded us not to. We'll see.
Yes. And
Carl, that's only for you.
Hey, Joanne.
I require that reminder.
Pete.
And Pete is here.
Oh my goodness! Look at all these luminaries.
Yeah,
including Joanna.
Quite a group of people
Hey,
here.
Joanna.
Great. All right. Well, hopefully no more note takers are signing in. All right. Well, hey, everybody. Our guests are signing in. We have over 30 of our past guests signing in for today. It's Monday, September 29, 2025, and it's time for episode 300 of Radio Free 501c. And it's our first live stream, so we beg forgiveness for any mistakes or problems that people might be having signing in. I'm so excited to see so many of my past guests here. You're all also friends, and I'm just so glad to see you all here. Now, one of the things that is great about Radio Free 501c is very much like the nonprofit management community. It has evolved over the 7 seasons that we've had. That's right. We've had 7 seasons. 300 episodes, 175 guests. Michael Butera, who's here today, has been a guest host, but he is tied for most appearances on the podcast with 9. So
Well,
way to go, Michael. Thank you.
It's amazing that after that, it's still on, you know?
After you go. I know it's been great. And when we started out with Radio Free 501c, was actually called Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, because I used to have a co-host, Agnes Amos Coleman, and we used to have these really deep conversations. And one day I said, you know, Agnes, we should record these and put these on YouTube. And she's like, yeah, okay, why not? So our very first episode was Transforming Business Through Godly Governance, based on her book that she wrote. And then we used to just have a guest once a month, and then it turned into like every week. And then as time went on, our lives changed. Agnes had to move on. She had to leave the show because she became a mom and she got a full-time job, and she didn't have the flexibility she once had. So it became Nonprofit Conversations. Then I decided to adopt the name Radio Free 501c because that was the name of a blog we used to have when we had the 501c League company. That was a separate company from Road Tulips, which we then integrated into the company. So it's so exciting to see that it's gone this long. Another thing I want to mention, Joy Dooling's here. She was our guest on episode 100. And we were just like, yes, episode 100. And we're talking to Joy Dooling about membership. So that was really great. And then episode 200, Michael Butera interviewed me. Episode 250, I invited Agnes back to do a show. And we did a show on legacy and association management. What are we leaving behind? I know Jeff DeCania talks about that a lot. What are people going to say 10 years from now? What are we going to be considered successful or not successful in leaving a better world for the people around us? So we've had a lot of great things happen, a lot of great conversations. We've talked about everything from, I actually have a list of a couple examples: building board capacity, international chapter leadership, financially astute associations, consuming research responsibly, advocacy and allyship, why the CAE is important, and one of mine and Carl Weaver's personal favorites, how associations are like movies. Because, right, we have a lot of drama in our organizations at times, right? So it's like in the boardroom, in the convention.
And you two always pick weird movies.
They're not weird. They're
Well, they're not rom-com.
No, they're not. You know, I think we'd be moving into like HR issues if they were rom-coms. I don't know, Carl, what do you think? You're my movie co-conspirator.
I don't know, what's a good rom-com? Maybe like I don't know. I don't really watch those, but we should plan one. See how we can make those illusions and connections.
Yeah, how about You've Got Mail?
You've Got Mail, perfect example. Let's do it.
Because we always admit we got our email. Okay,
Yeah.
Jeff is saying When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah, we'll have what she's having. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to have what she was having. Yes, I know this is live, but there is a delay, so don't worry. This is why, though, I sent out a request, no cussing, because this is a live stream and we don't want to put anybody off. So, oh yeah, Pete from Paris with Love. That's our favorite Valentine's Day movie.
What's a rom-com without a body count?
That's right. Yeah, one of the things some people know about me, but others may not, I love action films. And so one of our favorite Valentine's Day double features is From Paris with Love with John Travolta and The Long Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis. They're both action films, and there is some romance in both, although it doesn't work out too well. Oh, no, I don't think Planet of the Apes was a rom-com, Carl. Maybe Battle for the Planet of the Apes. But I don't want to do all the talking because, as you all know, you've been my guest. I love to hear what other people think and have to say. So one of the things I wanted to throw out there, and just jump in or raise your hand if you want to be polite. What do you think is going to be an issue other than artificial intelligence that associations are going to have to deal with in the next 2 years? Joanna.
Well, this is actually something that I've been talking about a lot, and I actually had a session at ASE Annual this year, and the kind of the trend that I think is going to affect associations in a really, really big way, it's happening now, is private equity. Private equity is pouring money into lots of industries, and it is affecting membership, it is affecting headcount, it's affecting profitability of the members, it's affecting the ability of members to participate in associations and give of their time and money. It's hurting many industries in negative ways. It's benefiting some industries. It's one of those topics that I think if you're in an industry that's affected, you know how painful it can be. If you haven't been affected, or maybe your industry hasn't been affected yet, or you just kind of don't know about this trend, you don't really know. But the session I did at Annual, there were maybe about 100 people in the room. Half the room erupted when we said, have you been affected by private equity? And the other half said no. And then afterwards, a whole lot of people came up to me and said, it's bad. So that's my, let's not talk about AI. Let's talk about something different. It's private equity.
Well,
and there's
to
so
add to
much
your
money that private equity is about to dump into industries, and we're going to see it.
And Joanna, also to add to your list, which you didn't mention, I'm sorry, Michael, I burst in like a bad girl, is operations, business operations, and lots of associations are being disrupted when private equity comes in.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's affecting workforce development, it's affecting profitability, it's affecting the quality of the work being done by the members. So I'll shut up and let others, chime in.
That's great.
Well-
Well, thanks, Joanna. That is really a great point, and we could dig into that on another episode, actually. So let's go to Michael and then Bruce Rosenthal.
Along the same line is the whole issue of private sector invasion into the association space. There are more and more efforts. They have a lot more money than most associations do. But I'd like to add a different one, two different ones actually. One is the fight for talent. And I don't only mean in terms of staffing, I mean in terms of boards as well. We need more and more talent, and people are eating it up in other places. And secondly, along the line of talent, I'd like to bring up the issue of our inability to pay what it takes to get what we want. We have a long-standing tradition in the association community of not paying very well, and that is a serious problem in today's world. So I just add the talent, meaning both staff and governance, and also the inability to pay what it's going to take to maintain that talent over the long haul.
Yeah, that's another great point. Thank you, Michael. So let's move on to Bruce, and then I'm going to start calling on people.
Okay, it's kind of actually a tangential to what Joanna and Michael talked about. Competition. Competition for the attention and the dollars of members, sponsors, exhibitors, and advertisers. Everything from other associations, trade press, for-profit associations or information aggregators. And I think it's driven actually more by convenience than quality at some points, because associations will often say, well, our information is better than theirs. That may be true, but if somebody else is out there with a better platform, members as well as sponsors, exhibitors, and advertisers will go to those other platforms. And kind of as it relates to private equity and the points that Michael made, a lot of those entities have a lot of money to put into this, and none of them would be doing any of that outreach if there wasn't money in it. So what are those other folks doing? Why do they see value in doing something that associations don't see the value in doing, or doing it as quickly? Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Now, before we go over to Jeff, I want to send a special shout out to my friend Lesedi Leseteti, who is here on her phone. She is at Botswana Open University, and so I know it's a little later in the day for her. So thank you so much, Lesedi, for signing in. So, okay, over to Jeff.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. I'm driving on the way, so I will not be communicating much, but thank you for welcoming me.
Oh, thank you for joining. Now, if you have not seen any of Lissetti's episodes, they are excellent. She is a leader in women's roles globally and in leadership on boards of directors. So she is a fabulous guest, and I really appreciate her insights on what we're all trying to do. And also having people from around the world come on the show shows us what we have in common. We're not all that different. So we might live in different countries, but we have the same needs and the same interests. So over to Jeff, who's been patiently raising his hand.
No problem. And congratulations, Cecilia, on episode 300. Very happy to have been a guest and looking forward to joining you again next month. I think there are so many issues that people have identified already. I know we're not talking about AI. It's so huge. We're talking, private equity, workforce, talent. I think that all of those issues and others that I have failed to mention here that have been shared by others feed into what I think is an even deeper issue for our organizations, for all organizations, but particularly associations, because of what we have been about historically. And that is this continued erosion of trust in relationships, the degradation, decline of our social capital, our inability to unify and find solidarity to solve problems across different sectors and different industries, and some are more successful at it than others. But when people's attention is so fragmented because they're spending so much time looking at screens, when they are seeking assistance from technology versus one another, when our humanity is being compromised on what feels like a daily basis, that's a problem for organizations that have existed historically to bring people together, to unify, to solve problems, to find common ground. And I think that we're seeing how that sort of fragmentation is happening inside our organizations today. And I think I'm concerned that it's only going to get worse in the next couple of years as we enter into a couple of new political cycles, which have not been good for us, as a country, and we see more and more division in our discourse and in our ways of thinking and our ways of acting. So there's some real short-term and long-term concerns that I have around that swirl of issues that are so fundamental to what associations have been about historically, that may be difficult for us to overcome if we can't find new ways to address them.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, Jeff. And I think that's leading to the fragmentation in the nonprofit management community as well. Let's go over to Brian Scott, who scared the heck out of me one time when he was on the podcast, when he told me about how all the hackers have corporatized.
Yeah, they have. They've industrialized. Well, I'm glad, Jeff, that you mentioned trust, because I think a big risk that's rarely talked about. You can probably guess what it's about, right? Hey, guess what? It's cybersecurity. But so many nonprofits in general and associations are entrusted to keep their members, donors, whatever it might be, information safe and secure. And particularly with Jeff, you mentioned, things going on in administration. With my own eyes, I have seen attack levels increasing in certain organizations that have have membership or focus in certain areas, right? And I won't go into detail about that, but it's definitely affecting cyberspace and risk in that space. And far too many associations are still very, very, very painfully immature in this area. And they really, really need help. And the first thing is just the light bulb going off that this is a risk that we really need to address. And so, I see that continuing to increase.
Wow. Thanks, Brian. Okay, Francesco, and then Sandra. Wow, we have so many people chiming in. I appreciate it. This is like a super episode, super-sized Radio Free 501c. Okay, Francesco.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. A very quick comment. I'm not being political, no socially motivated, but factual and historical. When I was at ASE the first time as a senior executive, we literally gathered together a presidential speech with the full cabinet, believe it or not, in concurrence. I'm going back a ways. And I'm wondering why the powerful association and society community in the United States that technically represent approximately 280 million people out of 340 are not being more courageous with trying to bring back some degree, not only of civility, but what Jeffrey alluded to, the trust among disjointed groups. Bottom line, I saw recently a lot of write-ups from medical groups opposing the brutality of the Secretary of Health and Human Services, but they knew what he was and what will become of Health and Human Services well before the nomination. Why weren't they courageous early on? Because it affects the health and humanity of the entire population. Why are they only now showing some concern? And bottom line, what I'm trying to convey is that I think we need to create new cadre of courageous leaders, people that are not opposing things for the sake of opposing, but based on factual data, empirical evidence, and historical precedents. They should be able to advert a problem and not comment on the problem after it already occurred.
Right. Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Francesco. Now, before we move on to Sandra and Roger on the question of what do you see coming, I want to give a shout out to Elisa Pratt, who's here with us today. She also has a podcast, Association Transformation, that she does with Andrew Chamberlain, and they've hit episode 156. So congratulations, Elisa. Thanks for signing in today. Great to see and seeing some other people. Cynthia Lockery is here. She was here. There she is. Cynthia's here from our neighbor to the north, Canada. And if you're not familiar with Cynthia's work, she does a lot of work on communications and advocacy. And I want to give also a shout out to Stacy DeLo from the other end of the country. She's on the West Coast calling in with us today. So just give a couple other shout outs for people and appreciate it. Mike Jack and Bryant Richards are here today as well. If you have not seen any of their episodes, they're some of the funniest episodes we've ever done. They have a great sense of humor and they know a lot about automation. So one other person, there's a lot of, I want to shout you all out, but for now I'm going to shout out Dean West because we're talking about the future. And of course, Association Laboratory does looking forward every year, collecting data for our industry. So let's go back over to Sandra, who is one of the co-founders of Kiko.
Hey, great to see everyone here. I wanted to maybe turn the energy around because I think one of their greatest risks is actually an opportunity, which I see as the ability to stay positive and see opportunity as much as possible. I think that's what is in the future because there is so much change that if we focus on the risks and then all the negative, then the vacuum goes that way. So I think that if we have the mindset of thinking about innovation, opportunities, turning problems into solutions, that is the greatest asset that we all have as humans, if we're not going to talk about AI and what our capabilities are. So I think that's a huge opportunity that we should just kind of focus on. How do we stay positive? How do we continue leadership and think about leadership in this new age? How do we think about all the positives? And so I just wanted to turn that around.
Yes. I'm glad you said that about being positive, Sandra, because it's all about mindset, right? If we see the world as a dark place, that's what we see. But if we see the challenges as opportunities, then I think that will help us move forward and create that world that we really want, because we make the world by our actions and our thoughts. So if we take more positive action, guess what? We're going to have a more positive world, right? So over to Roger. Great to see you, Roger.
Hi, everybody. The thing that I'm seeing that is a disrupting force out there affects associations a little bit less than it does other nonprofits, but it's disruption in funding sources.
Oh.
Associations are nonprofit organizations, need to raise money, et cetera, et cetera. And generally associations raise money from their members primarily. So this is nice because this is somewhat insulated during times of turmoil. But times of turmoil is a pretty good description of what's happening in the rest of the nonprofit fundraising world right now. the loss and review and suspension of federal grants, the fact that private foundations tend to be sitting on more of their money than they've ever done before, the rise of donor-advised funds, which are not exactly the most responsive of fundraising vehicles. These are disrupting fundraising for all nonprofits. It would be silly to assume that associations are not going to get dragged into the primary chaos there, even though you've got a little bit of insulation from it due to the basic nature of your fundraising. Which, by the way, Michael, the whole idea of not paying enough for the things we want to do, I think that was your comment, wasn't it? Yeah, it's like, well, this is part of the root of it. Associations tend to raise a little bit less money because you're always asking your members for it. So that's what I see in any case. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Roger. And Joanna, before we come back to you for additional input, I also want to point out a couple of my friends are here that have been on the show. You've all been on the show, of course. That's why you're invited to the 300th. But Anuja Miner and Barry Pilson, who I want to give a special shout out because they very bravely came on the show with me to discuss ageism in the hiring process. And we actually had a third person, and then they decided not to do it at the last minute because they don't want to put their name out there. So that's why podcasts are important, because it's individual radio. We're able to share messages, talk about ideas, and speak up. Some of you may know I just recently got a certification in ethics from the Ethics and Compliance Initiative organization. And one of the 5 things of a high quality ethics and compliance program is speaking up. So if we want to see change, if we want to see real change, if we want to make change, we need to speak up. And that sometimes means taking a risk. And that can be scary, like doing your first live stream with all your guests and not knowing if it's going to work right or not. So, but we need to do that. So I really want to give a shout out to that. Anyone who speaks up, who takes that risk. You may have heard me say in the past, anytime you give a speech, do a speaking engagement, do a webinar, post a blog post, do a podcast, you're taking a risk because everybody may not agree with you. So it can be scary. But if we just find our courage to do it, we may actually make a difference in someone's life. Even if it's one person, you've made a big difference. So I want to encourage everybody, speak up. There's ways to do it without being insulting. You can be polite and disagree. As Barry Goldwater said, you can disagree without being disagreeable. So over to Joanna.
You know, I want to comment on what Francesco talked about and following up on what you just said. I think, Cecilia, that we have been running these organizations as non-political or apolitical organizations. And so when we say we don't talk about politics, we've stopped being able to talk about politics. And so we just don't know how to have civil discussion because we don't do it. We don't have practice. And 2 things, and then I'll shut up. I was recently talking to the CEO of a scientific organization that serves women, and she said, these times are destroying my organization because my younger members want to protect the organization. So it's heads down, let's protect the organization. But the older members are saying, I didn't fight for everything that's happened in order to just keep my head down. So she said, and because they're apolitical, they don't really know how to have the discussion. It's been hard. The last thing I'll say about this is my friend Matthew Hughes from the World Affairs Council. He says, Joanna, we have to stop believing in American exceptionalism. We keep saying it's not going to happen here, and then it happens. And so I think maybe we need to start saying it could happen here. And so what should we do in order to not let it happen? Because I think we're in reactionary mode, to Francesco's point, where things happen and then we're like, oh my God, what just happened? And because we keep believing it won't happen here.
Right. And it can very easily.
And it has.
And it has. Well, and there is an old saying, the price of liberty is constant vigilance, but you can't just watch, you have to act. So thank you for sharing that, Joanna. I love that. Okay, Ander Conti from the great state of Florida, where Barbara Armentrout also hails from.
Yay, Florida. Where are you, Barbara?
I'm down south in Boca.
I'm on the other coast, Southwest Florida.
Mm-hmm. All warm.
Thank you, Cecilia, for doing this, and thanks for having the conversation. My apologies for coming in a little bit late. Andar Conti with Hill Staffer. I've spent 35 years of my career doing advocacy and government relations, and I will tell you that I have never seen our world order as threatened right now, for lack of a better term. Sandra, I really appreciate your commentary on positivity. I will not lie, I am having a very difficult time keeping positive. Possibly it's because I'm working in that political sphere so much, but I think our world order is undergoing a major change, whether it's social mores and what goes on in the workplace, whether it's education and what education will look like, and whether history will be factual or a fantasy of a particular group of people, whether healthcare will be based on facts and sound science, whether technology will undermine all of the great strides we've made with technology over the years via AI. I would also say that right now, very specifically, our association community is under threat via the potential legislative changes to 501c3, not C3, 501c tax status, and efforts in the Congress to undermine what that means with some organizations or others. We got lucky in the last One Big Beautiful bill, and I'm not sure that we're going to be able to maintain that going forward. Civility and civil discourse. Trust is so low right now. There is what is truth? Nobody, truth has become, instead of factually based, it has become opinion based. And he who speaks or she who speaks loudest, their truth is the truth, which has resulted in a lot of gaslighting and a lot of hurtful and bullying behaviors, which gets back to what I was suggesting about social mores and the lack of role models that young people really have today. When we grew up, and I mean this from the perspective of somebody who's this close to retirement, as opposed to folks who here may be younger and of a different generation. I don't disrespect you in any way, but I sort of feel bad because I'm not sure you have the ability to have the kind of respectful role models that I had growing up. And that really concerns me very, very much. And that can mean, when it goes back to the workplace, is it just your boss, your bosses, your board, your peers, all of those sorts of things. And then with regards to the apolitical versus political organizations, one of the things that has bothered me for many years as a former chair of the ASAE Government Relations Council is that I feel like the government relations, public policy aspect of things is not often as appreciated in that realm and in that discourse as it could or should be, in spite of the fact that many of the reasons that associations come together is because of those opportunities to work together. And one thing, last thing I would say is that there's a very large difference between policy and politics. And too many people who are willing to take a very wide, a very broad and very thin basis of an argument, which they probably heard somewhere in 30 seconds and are suddenly experts, talk politics, they don't talk policy. And as somebody who's been in this business in the political side as well as the policy side for over 3 decades, almost 4 now, I would say to you that I think we need to remind people about the differences between policy and politics. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Anne. Okay, and we have about 15 minutes left here on the podcast. We are moving into talking about policy and politics and things like that. Some people can make the argument everything's political. I make the argument everything's ethical because it's our choices that define us. But I want to open up. Let's kind of move away from policy a little bit, unless somebody has like a burning point they need to make. Because one of the things I think this conversation is just really defining for me, reminding me, reinforcing for me is probably the better word, is we need to talk to people we don't agree with. I love talking to people I don't agree with, because that helps me test my belief system. So if my belief is strong and my position is strong, it can stand somebody disagreeing with it. But talking to somebody I disagree with might show me, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a hole in my thinking or a hole in my argument. And I think that's really what we want to do. It's one of the reasons, and Scott, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot for a second. I invited Scott Hodge to be on my podcast because everybody was talking about Scott and everybody was talking about his paper, but nobody was actually reading Scott's paper or talking to Scott. So I said, hey, Scott, do you want to come on and talk to me about your paper? And so, Scott, you've unmuted. I don't know if you want to add something.
Oh, well, I'm probably the skunk in the garden party, and challenging probably all the beliefs of many of your guests. But I do think that we're at a point where we need to have a great revisiting of the tax-exempt nonprofit sector. After 114 years, I don't think we've had the kind of discussion of what it is to be a nonprofit, what it is to be a tax-exempt organization. As I mentioned in our conversation, that nonprofit universe, the economy is about $3.5 trillion. It's about 13% of GDP, and about 2.8 trillion of that is business-related income. And charitable donations are only a small fraction of the nonprofit revenue stream. So what is it that should be a nonprofit versus a business masquerading as a nonprofit? And I think we need that discussion.
I agree, Scott, and I don't agree with everything in your paper, but I found it very educational. So Jerica, you had your hand up and took it down, and Elisa had also had her hand up. So Jerica, did you want to add something?
Thanks for the opportunity to join you on this celebratory moment, Cecilia. So very proud of you. And you and I did an episode around inclusive communication. I think that ties directly into your point of inviting opposing views to the table. And essentially, I think this is critical for the future of associations in really managing change and the rapid pace of change. And I think that is a serious disruptor for many associations who do not have I want to say, a game plan for having an internal team that is inclusive, focused on how to keep up with the pace of change and stay relevant. And so I wanted to add that, and again, congratulate you on this moment.
Oh, thank you, Jerica. Really appreciate it. Check out Jerica's company, Elation Communication, especially if you're looking for event management and communications advice as well. So Elisa, did you want to add something, or did we get past your comment?
I was going to type it in, but I just wanted to thank you. You've been elevating conversations that are uncomfortable, unpopular, and between your writings and your blog posts and the podcast, I just wanted to really thank you for your courage and hope you'll continue. I know 300 episodes is a lot, but we hope that we have 300 more or more out of you, and that you'll keep pushing all these topics, both uncomfortable and necessary. I really appreciate it, and just wanted to personally thank you for all that you've taught me and the example that you set for so many in this space.
Oh, thank you, Elisa. Really appreciate that. I do a lot of what I do because I think it's important. I don't necessarily expect a reward for it, but I think somebody's got to do it, right? And my favorite essayist, Florence King, once said one of the great things about national service or required military service is if you said somebody do something, somebody would. So we are all somebody. When somebody says somebody needs to do something, you're somebody. And you can do something. And all the little things we do add up, and all the little things help people in different ways. You know, there's that old saying about for want of a nail, a kingdom was lost. So little things do matter. So don't think because you do a small thing for someone or think what you're doing is not noticed or seen that it's not making a difference, because it probably is for someone somewhere. And if you can help somebody, help them. So I really appreciate that, Elisa and Jerica, and thank you. And want to thank everybody for their support over the years, because there is no podcast without a guest. So really appreciate it. And those of you who've been on more than once, really appreciate that as well. So we said we were going to do about a 45-minute episode. We're coming up on 45 minutes. So I want to see, is there anything else, any other questions, comments, anybody wants to share or point out? Oh, Cynthia.
Hi, from Canada here. One of the things that I'm seeing, and we're not going to talk about AI, but we're still going to mention it, is we need to focus more on people skills. Some people call it soft skills. I don't like that term. I think it's essential people skills. And we criticize people when they don't have these good communications, good interpersonal, emotional intelligence, but we don't train people in it. The accountant gets trained on accounting, the engineer, but they weren't trained on these skills. And I'm seeing a lot of nonprofits I work with in Canada, a lot of nonprofits are coming to me for training on people skills, because that's the retention, that's the recruitment, that's the staff morale, that's the understanding different personalities, different views, and trying to meet people where they are instead of pulling everybody towards us, which if you've ever pulled a toddler, they run the opposite direction. So I'm thinking like really going back from how do we connect with people? How do we have conversations? How do we understand different perspectives? And AI is not going to do that for us. So it's really about investing, and especially when we're doing succession planning as well, we want to make sure those people coming up in our organization have people skills, not just the other skills that you think are more important.
Thank you for saying that, Cynthia. And I know Michael Butera agrees with you, because he always talks about that as well. And that's great. And again, here we are. Okay, Canada's not that far from us, but we are different countries and we see the same concerns and we see the same positive solutions. So thank you for saying that, Cynthia. And Cynthia has a great blog if you haven't checked it out. So that's how we met. I saw one of her blog posts on LinkedIn and I just sent her a note, said, hey, why don't you be on my podcast? And she said, yes. So take a risk. So Anusha.
Thank you. I want to echo much of what, others have already said, but, personally, you've given me an opportunity through this podcast, to sort of share my trials, tribulations, challenges, opportunities, and, much of what Alyssa also said, is that you've used this platform to get others to feel comfortable in an environment that sometimes is not. And doing the podcast with you and Barry on ageism, that really is a topic that, a lot of us have faced and we've been facing for a number of years, but we've just never really talked about it. And I think people are fearful of wanting to share, whether it's personal challenges or know that somebody else is also going through something similar. And so I think you've highlighted so many issues and so many topics that people were probably either afraid to bring it up or, speak to someone that may not necessarily agree with you. So, just on a personal level, thank you for, giving me that platform. And on a professional level, the mentorship and the networking that I've had a chance to also meet so many other people through this platform has also been amazing. And we're going to continue to have lots more challenges. But, and I put this in chat, but I think we're all resilient as human beings, and we don't realize the strength, the courage we have until we're faced with difficult situations. So I think that hopefully the next generation will continue fighting the good fight, and that, 10, 20 years from now, we'll be in a better place than we were 10, 20 years ago. So, so thank you again, and congratulations again, Cecilia.
Thank you. And as we're getting close to wrapping up, I do like to be inclusive. So has anybody not gotten to say something you'd like to say before we wrap up? Okay, so I want to thank you all. I'm going to practice a little nepotism here because nobody does anything on their own. And my husband has been a guest several times, and a couple of times because I had a guest cancel at the last minute. I would go into the other room and say, can you be on the podcast? So I just want to throw that out there. He's always a great guest. It's some of our more popular episodes because we have a lot of fun talking. So over to Pete Supp. I just want to see if you wanted to add a comment of any kind.
Just to offer my heartiest congratulations on your 300th. Like the 300 Spartans, you stand up for civilization every day.
Well, thank you. You can't go out on a better note than that.
And unlike the Spartans, you don't lose at the end of every podcast.
That's true. Well, wow, that's great. Thank you so much. Well, as you all know, because you've been on the show, I like to do my wrap up. It's time to go rogue. We have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next time with another exciting episode. I want to thank everybody who's been on the show, who's watched the show, who suggested topics, because podcasts don't last this long if there's not some level of interest. I personally get a lot out of it. I really enjoy it. So I want to encourage you all to tune in next week for episode 301. We've broken the barrier, where we're going to be talking with Elizabeth Engel, Jamie Notter, and Chrissy Bagby about their white paper on lean management 10 years later. So check that out on Monday. So thank you all again. And on behalf of everybody here right now and everybody who was here earlier and had to leave, we'll see you next time.